The night after my father's funeral, I woke up to the sound of something falling in his study. The house was silent, yet I could feel a presence, as if someone else was there. My hands trembled as I opened the door, the air thick with the scent of his cologne that should have faded days ago. On his desk, the lamp flickered weakly, illuminating a single envelope I swear hadn't been there before. My name written in his handwriting. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it echo through the room. I wanted to believe it was my imagination, but as I picked up the letter, I noticed something strange. A faint fingerprint on the seal, still fresh. My father was dead, but somehow he had left me one last message, and whatever it contained was not meant to bring peace. It was meant to uncover a truth that could destroy everything I thought I knew about my family. In the quiet aftermath of my father's funeral, the house felt haunted, not by ghosts, but by silence. The echo of condolences still clung to the air like smoke after a fire. As I stood by his desk, my trembling fingers brushed against an envelope marked for my children. My heart raced. Something about the way his handwriting slanted told me this was not a simple farewell. Grief made me cautious, but curiosity pushed harder. I tore it open, expecting comfort. Instead, the words inside would change everything I thought I knew about family, love, and truth. The letter revealed that my father had prepared a will, sealed by his lawyer, to be opened a week after his death. I remember staring at those words, feeling a cold shiver crawl up my spine. Why the delay? Why such secrecy? I told my siblings, but even they sensed the unease beneath the surface. My sister whispered that perhaps he left us debts, or maybe he didn't trust us to handle the truth immediately. That night, none of us slept. Every creak in the hallway sounded like our father's footsteps returning with unfinished business. When the day finally came, we gathered in the lawyer's dimly lit office. The smell of old paper and cologne filled the room, heavy and suffocating. My father's portrait hung above the fireplace, his eyes seeming to watch every move we made. The lawyer cleared his throat and began reading. I could hear my heartbeat thundering in my ears. Each sentence built a wall between what I wanted to believe and what was real. When he said my father's entire fortune was left to someone named Elias Moreau, a stranger to us all, the world stopped spinning. A name we had never heard before. A name that didn't belong in our bloodline. My brother slammed his fist on the table, his voice breaking as he demanded answers. The lawyer remained calm, explaining that my father's instructions were final and legally binding. There was no mistake. I felt my breath shorten, my thoughts spiraling into disbelief. Who was Elias Moreau? Why would my father, a man of loyalty and discipline, hand everything to someone outside our family? A storm began to brew, not outside, but inside each of us. As we left the office, I saw my reflection in the window. My eyes looked different, colder, sharper. That moment marked the beginning of a hunt for truth. I could no longer mourn, I could only question. My family, once united by grief, was now fractured by suspicion. And deep inside, I could sense it. This stranger, Elias, was not just a random name. He was a key to a secret my parents had buried long ago. A secret that would soon unearth everything we thought we knew about love and loyalty. I couldn't rest until I knew who Elias Moreau was. Days turned into sleepless nights filled with whispers of my parents' past. I scoured old letters, phone records, and photographs. The more I searched, the more I felt my father's presence, watching, warning. My mother's old journals revealed fragments of a life before us, words laced with guilt and longing. There was a name mentioned again and again, Elias. My stomach twisted as I realized he wasn't a stranger to her. He was someone she once loved deeply. Confronting my mother's memory was like opening an old wound that never healed. I started visiting people who knew my parents before they married, neighbors, colleagues, old friends. Each conversation was a puzzle piece, and every revelation painted my mother as a woman torn between two lives. One of them whispered that before marrying my father, she had a son she was forced to give away. My heart sank. Could it be? Could Elias be her child? The thought felt impossible, yet too precise to ignore. My siblings refused to believe it. They said people talk nonsense when money is involved, but I felt something in my gut, an instinct pulling me toward the truth. I hired a private investigator who uncovered a sealed birth certificate. The name of the mother read Marie Laurent, my mother's maiden name. And under the column for the father, the space was empty. My vision blurred as I realized the truth my father had hidden. Elias Moreau was not a stranger. He was our half-brother. Anger turned to confusion and confusion to sorrow. My father had known all along. He had chosen to give everything to the child my mother had once lost. Perhaps it was revenge, or perhaps redemption. The investigator told me my father met Elias in secret before he died. Financial transfers, meetings in distant towns. He didn't just give him his fortune, he gave him his forgiveness. I sat there, my heart torn between betrayal and admiration. My father had been both cruel and kind, a man shaped by wounds we never saw, never. I remember standing in front of my father's grave that evening, the sunset bleeding red across the horizon. I wanted to scream at him, to demand answers, to ask why he didn't trust us with the truth. But all I felt was an overwhelming sadness. He had died carrying secrets to protect us, or perhaps to protect her memory. I whispered into the wind, "You could have told me, Father." And for a moment I thought I heard his voice reply, soft and distant. Some truths destroy faster than lies. When I finally found Elias, he wasn't what I expected. He lived modestly in a small coastal town, unaware of the storm his name had unleashed. His eyes, blue like our mother's, stared at me with a mixture of confusion and fear when I introduced myself. I told him who I was, and he froze. His hands trembled as he whispered, "So, you finally know." The sound of those words shattered something inside me. He had known about us all along, but he never reached out. I couldn't decide if I hated him or pitied him. Elias told me that my father had approached him months before his death. He said my father wanted to make peace with the past, to give back what life had stolen. My mother, he explained, had been forced to abandon him when she married. My father promised to make things right, to ensure Elias would never feel unwanted again. As he spoke, I could see pain in every line of his face, a reflection of my own. The stranger I had despised was now a mirror of my family's sins. Back home, my siblings refused to accept him. They accused me of betrayal for even meeting him, the house filled with shouting, tears, and accusations. My brother swore to contest the will, while my sister shut herself in her room, refusing to eat. Our family, once whole, had splintered into sharp edges of resentment. I sat in the corner, holding my father's letter, reading the same line over and over. Forgive what I could not confess. I finally understood. He wasn't asking us to accept the inheritance. He was asking us to heal. The following weeks were suffocating. The media caught wind of the will, painting us as vultures fighting over wealth. I withdrew from everything, spending hours staring at the ocean my father once loved. One night, Elias called. He said he didn't want the money, that it had never been about inheritance. He wanted family, forgiveness, and peace. I cried then, for the first time since the funeral, because I realized my father's fortune had never been gold or land. It was the truth he left behind for us to face. In the end, Elias donated most of the inheritance to a foundation in my parents' name. The day I signed the papers beside him, I felt a strange calm. For once, the ghosts were quiet. As I walked away, I looked back at him, a man who carried my mother's eyes and my father's silence. He smiled faintly and said, "Maybe now they can both rest." And for the first time since my father's death, I believed him. Months passed, and life slowly returned to something resembling peace. The house was still filled with memories, but they no longer suffocated me. Sometimes I'd sit by the fireplace and read my father's old letters, imagining what he must have felt when writing them. He wasn't a perfect man, none of us are, but in his imperfect love, he gave us something priceless, the truth, however painful it was to bear. And in that truth, I found forgiveness, not only for him, but for myself. My siblings eventually softened. My brother reached out to Elias, awkward at first, but willing to try. My sister sent him our mother's locket as a gesture of peace. We met again months later, all of us standing by our parents' graves. There was no bitterness left, only a quiet understanding. The wind carried away what words couldn't express. Elias placed a white rose on our mother's grave, whispering something none of us could hear. For the first time, I felt we were complete. Looking back, I realize how fragile the truth is, how it can both destroy and heal. My father's hidden testament was not a curse, but a final act of love wrapped in mystery. He knew that only by facing our deepest wounds could we truly become a family again. It took loss, betrayal, and pain to uncover something simple yet profound. Forgiveness is the only inheritance worth keeping. Now, whenever I tell this story, people ask me if I ever resented my father. I tell them no, because what he did, though painful, was necessary. He forced us to see each other not as rivals, but as broken pieces of the same whole. Elias may have inherited the fortune, but we inherited the lesson. And that, I believe, is far more valuable than gold. Sometimes at night, I still hear my father's voice in my dreams. He says, "Thank you for understanding." And I whisper back, "Thank you for teaching me how to forgive." Then I wake up, not with grief, but with gratitude for the truth, for the love that outlived the lies, and for the family that found its way back from the shadows of the past. In life, not every secret is meant to hurt us. Some are buried to protect us until we are strong enough to face them. My father's hidden testament was not a betrayal. It was a mirror reflecting the truth we refuse to see. Forgiveness does not erase pain, but it transforms it into wisdom. Sometimes the people we love most will wound us, not out of malice, but out of fear. It is only when we learn to forgive that we truly honor their memory. If my story touched your heart, if you believe that love and truth can rise even from the deepest betrayal, then subscribe to my channel. Join me for more stories that remind us every darkness hides a lesson and every broken heart has a purpose.